Hi, today we're going to explain to you how to install a fifth wheel camera system. At first we're going to give you an overview of all the existing components that come in a kit, and then one at a time we're going to take them, put them in a vehicle, and review again with you what exactly it is. Really, to start out, when we talk about a fifth wheel camera, this actually is a fifth wheel camera right here, and it actually consists of two cameras inside this magic box. Inside this magic box also too there is a blanket that's inside that actually heats this box up. These cameras are different. One's going to face forward, one's going to face backwards. We'll explain more later. This is actually an Allen wrench that comes in the kit as well. It's used for loosening these actual bolts, which allows you to take these particular cameras and adjust them up and down and side to side. You will also get your entire harness in this kit, in addition to what's called a control module, that it will already be snapped to the end of the harness. This is your bracket, which this bracket will get mounted to the back side of the truck chassis, and this fifth wheel camera will get mounted on top of here. These straps also tie to the vehicle so that it makes it more rigid and it doesn't bounce. These are video cables over 30 feet long. They'll get attached actually to the fifth wheel camera, and they'll run all the way up front to the camera, which they will be connecting to a monitor and a harness that connects to the bottom of the monitor. These are the video cables down here, as well as on this particular cable, this harness here will connect to the fifth wheel camera, run all the way up front, and interconnect with these particular cables, and they will actually connect to the truck to give you your switched power, and which will control not only the blanket heater that's on here for going on and off all the time, every time you turn the ignition on, but as well as controlling, sending the signals to the monitor when you're backing up the vehicle and when you're pulling forward. This box here, inside this box, consists of the bracket, the monitor, the harness, a remote control, as well as hardware for the side of this bracket. This bracket is optional. Many customers may choose to mount this particular monitor in any area of the vehicle that they wish. In addition, this is loom. This loom will be used to protect this harness and these video cables. They will be run in this loom from the back end of the vehicle all the way up inside to the cab, and then it'll be cut off to length, and then these zip ties right here will be used, or they call them cable ties, will be used to actually fix this to the actual frame of the truck all the way up. So with that being said, we're going to get actually into the installation now. You want to locate where your actual monitor is going to be. Every customer is going to be different. It's really their preference. For this particular customer, we're going to be mounted in an overhead, and actually we're going to mount the bracket on here using 1024 bolts with washers, lock washers, and a nut on the back side. And then the monitor is going to get mounted up like so. And then once the monitor is put in place, then our installers, Casper's Trucks, is going to take this particular harness. It's going to fasten to the underside of the monitor. It plugs in the back of the monitor like so, and the wires will actually be fished in the back of this cubby and ran through and connected to the harness. We just wanted to come back here to give you a quick update. Currently right now, the installers actually have removed the top part of this overhead, as well as the side molding and the floor molding, so now he can actually start running his wire. Shortly we'll be back to show you what that looks like. One of the next phases of our installation is we're actually going to take this harness, these video cables, and combine all three of them into this actual loom here. And we will show you how that process is using a special loom tool to fish these through. So within a couple of minutes, we'll start walking through that once we actually get these stretched out onto the ground. This is the next step in the installation process. It's actually taking the fifth wheel harness, the video cables, and loom, and joining them all together as one. And what's important is this particular end actually is at the back end of the truck. These particular ends of the video cable actually are at the back end of the truck, and the actual fifth wheel camera will connect to this and spin on to join this. There's also a black trigger wire which will connect when you're actually putting the truck in reverse, and you want to leave about 2 to 3 feet of extra wire past the ends of this so you have plenty of room to move around on the back of the truck. Now Joe will come in here and he'll actually tape these together and show you actually how to loom these into here using a loom tool. It costs under $10. It's not included in the kit, but it's a highly recommended tool, especially if you're going to do whether it's one of these or 100 of these. So go ahead, Joe. Yep. There you go.
I don't even know how to use my own tool.
And then put it in the loom. Pinch the end there, and then you start working it down. And as Joe is doing this, there is a trick you can do too. To actually take this end, if you want to kind of wrap it and tie it around in a leg of a table or something, just so it doesn't slide as it's pouring. But as you can see with that tool, he's just about done within 1 minute. And one of the next steps Joe's going to do here is he's actually going to wrap these ends up here, protect them with electrical tape, because he's going to actually start pulling this entire bundle now from the front of the truck all the way to the rear of the truck, making sure he stays away from all exhaust pipes, following the same pathway that other harnesses actually follow. And he'll go, as he's moving along, he'll use cable ties to strap this in place so that in the end it's secure, it's not dangling, and he can finish his install at the front of the cab. One of the things that we wanted to point out too is after Joe has run the loom all the way to the back end of the truck, has run it on the inside of the frame, one more time mentioning stay away from all hot areas such as exhaust pipes, catalytic converters, and so forth. He's brought the actual loom up right now and is currently going to use an existing hole that's going through the firewall to actually penetrate and come into the cab. Every truck is different where you actually come into the vehicle. You can come through the firewall, whether it's an existing hole or if you have to drill a new hole. You can even come through the floor. It really depends on your installation. So with this, now Joe's going to start working inside the actual cab. Now as part of the installation, we're going to show you actually where the fifth wheel chassis bracket goes on, which you'll see it goes in this area here. It's different for every truck, but in this case, because we have such a large platform here, we're going to end up drilling 2 holes through here and two through holes through here and bolting this in place. There are actual straps that do come with this, depending on the actual frame, where you don't have to bolt through here. You can actually drill a hole through the top here, and using the provided hardware, bolt it through here and here. Once this is bolted in place, there's also we will take the fifth wheel camera, and that will get mounted on here with the provided hardware. And always remember that the fifth wheel camera, the actual video cables and wires need to be to your left side, so your left hand as if you're facing the back of the truck cab. So when we come back, you will actually see this installed. One thing to point out is that for each truck, if this bracket is not called out as part of the bill of materials, there's an alternative bracket called a universal bracket, which looks like this big bar right here. And this big bar actually, depending on where it's called out, would fit inside the truck like this, somewhere in here, and get bolted to the sides. We would put a mounting plate on top like so, and then the fifth wheel camera would get mounted on top of this, just like so. So when we come back, you will see this particular bracket installed, and then we'll start actually walking you through how to run the wires and the video cables. Okay, as a follow-up, after running the actual wires, being the control wires for the little motor in here, the heater wires for the blanket, the video cable, and the trigger wire that actually is used when you back up. One thing we do is actually we now connect the video cables from the fifth wheel camera to the video cables going up front, basically with this tightening nut. You do it on both, and when you're done with that, these protective sleeves, you'll actually pull over both sides. It takes a little bit of work, and then we'll do it on this one as well. And that keeps all the salt and debris out. And then this particular connection point here, push it all the way together until you hear a clip, because there's actually a clip here. And then one of the second last things that we're going to do here is we're identifying there is a harness here that connects to your brake lights, your backup lights, and we're going to identify which area we're going to terminate to for the backup lights, and we'll actually take this trigger and actually tie it in here, splice it in as well to make our connection. As we mentioned earlier, we left a bunch of extra feet here. We'll cut that to fit so that we don't have a bunch of this dangling. And then one of the last things we'll do is take all of these connections and use cable ties and lock this in place, and then the other loose loom harnesses will also cable tie those in place too. So when we come back, you'll see the finished product. One of the steps in our installation is completing the back end here of the fifth wheel camera assembly. As you can see, we've actually used cable ties and we secured the wires that were in the loom. This smaller loom here actually has the trigger wire that actually does get spliced in to the reverse of the actual vehicle. The connections on this side are currently made, which earlier we showed how we connected them, and we slid these cables over. And on the inside here, you can manually pull this flap down, and you'll see that the bolt is in here. There's one on this end and one on this end, and the actual fifth wheel is bolted down. The fifth wheel camera is bolted down to the bracket. The bracket's fully secure. We have a very robust, solid system here. Now what we'll end up doing is finishing all the connections in the front of the truck, and then we'll go into the next mode of testing it and doing our adjustments. As one of our last steps here in the installation process, it's actually now connecting all the wires in the cab portion of the truck, and we have done that. And what you want to do is test all your connections before you put everything away. And in this case, we've connected our video cables that go all the way back to the fifth wheel camera. The key here is to make sure that you connect the correct cameras so that the correct views come up on the monitor, which we will show you that shortly of how to use the monitor. Then you also have on this is your harness that comes with the monitor kit. You have a red and black wire, which on the actual vehicle harness coming from the fifth wheel, you're pairing up the red and the yellow and the black and the brown together. And then focusing down in this area here, this is the control module. You actually have your red, which is your constant power, and your black, that's ground. And then you also have your brown and your yellow wire, which is basically right up here, which is providing you power to your monitor. These particular cables here, blue and white, this actually is power going back to the motors in the fifth wheel camera that opens and closes the red flap doors. And this actual black wire here is your trigger that's coming from when you put the vehicle in reverse. The last two cables that you have to connect, this is non-polarity cables, meaning it doesn't matter which two you connect, but one goes to switched power and one goes to ground. Once you've connected all of these, what you want to do is turn your system on, put it in reverse, and we'll show you the next part of what it's supposed to work like. In the meantime, Joe is going to take all of this and I'll put it all together so you can see the final install, and we'll actually show you how the system works. The last part of the installation is adjusting the cameras on the fifth wheel. As you will see on the back camera here, Joe's going to adjust the actual camera so that we can position it to swing either left to right. And he essentially does that by holding a nut on the inside and loosening the bolt. And also for the camera pitch up or down, Joe will show you on the front camera facing the latch that you can just pivot it up and down to adjust that view. It's essentially that simple, and on the monitor inside the vehicle you'll see the crosshairs, and you want the crosshairs to be right on the kingpin and actually right on the latch of the truck here, so when you're backing this vehicle up they're in perfect alignment. This video is going to show a driver how the system actually operates. One of the important things, first of all, is to make sure that the kingpin of the trailer is elevated enough so that it will, when backing the truck up to the kingpin, it won't actually crush the fifth wheel camera. So what we're going to show you right now is we're going to start the actual truck and we're going to put it in reverse. That's when the actual monitor will come on, only when you put it in reverse. Remember that once it's out of reverse and in drive, the monitor goes off. So we're going to start the truck and we're going to explain to you what is occurring. Okay, so we put the truck in reverse, the monitor has come on. What you're seeing on this side is actually the crosshairs that are going to line up with the kingpin. And this side is actually the crosshairs lining up with the latch. So we've already backed the truck up a little bit. The kingpin would have been a little bit farther away. But at this point, we're going to back the truck up and you're going to watch the kingpin float over and it's going to appear on this side here. Here comes the kingpin into the latch. And with a little shake, we're actually latched onto the trailer. At that point, we recommend going out to make sure visually it's latched on. And then the last and most important thing that's recommended is that you do a tug test to assure that the latch is actually engaged. And at that point, when we take the vehicle out of reverse and we put it into either neutral or we put it into drive, the actual cameras will go off and we'll actually be able to move forward and drive the vehicle wherever you need to go.